This is Tro's Resilience Hub. We're going to be looking at a few different things here, starting off with our introduction.
So, when looking at Truro, we want to look at a few key things about churros. So, one thing is that its identity is tied to its small, close-knit community and strong connection to the land and sea. The town's rural character and dispersed settlement pattern influence its modern infrastructure and accessibility. Truro residents are wealthier, older adults who have aged in place, often living in isolated areas without easy access to centralized services. There are environmental pressures that include coastal erosion, sea level rise, and storm surge. And barriers to climate preparedness include low-lying shorelines, the aging infrastructure, and limited transportation routes. And it's important to note that Truro's year-round population remains under 3,000, but it can soar to 15,000 to 20,000 people during summer months, since Truro is an ideal vacation spot um, for people in Massachusetts. And we have here a visualization of the age of Truro, being the median age is about 66 years old.
Okay, so when it comes to a overall question that we wanted to guide our research, we came up with how can a small town like Truro design effective resilience hubs for older populations and get older populations involved in these climate emergency preparedness? Um, and so, following along that question, we were able to conduct a bunch of research and we came up with overall findings that brought us to our final thesis, which was in resilience hubs in Truro, we would want them to prioritize physical accessibility, social capital, and existing nonprofits or community groups to engage older residents in climate change preparedness. So going about this research, we had multiple research methods where um, we looked for sources through multiple research locations, including our library database, and then also local Churro websites and papers. We used a lot of keywords such as climate change, emergency preparedness, engagement, and elderly, along as a bunch of other ones. Okay, so diving into our literature review, we're going to break down a little bit of what we found. So, in my literature review, I looked at why elders should care about climate change. This kind of a lot of the ones that I found highlighted climate vulnerabilities among elders, looking into really understanding the needs that they have and creating community spaces and hubs that are really accessible for these elders and designed for them. They talked a lot about outreach and engagement importance, um, and how that's really important to make sure that we really get these vulnerabilities highlighted and these needs highlighted, because there's a lot of different worries that they have and concerns like pre-existing health conditions, economic limitation, transportation access, communication, and a lot more.
And we want to look at what works for other resilience hubs. One of the things that brought us to looking into Truro and made a lot of us very interested in this topic is that it's different from a lot of the other resilience hubs that have been constructed due to its demographics and location. So being on the Cape and having a lot of older, wealthier residents, a lot of the classic things you'd see in resilience hubs are less likely to be found for Truro and its older population. So things we saw in Truro, things we saw in other resilience hubs where a lot of services focused on people who are unhoused or unemployed or underemployed. So helping people with things like food, somewhere to sleep, and just basic self-care things. But this is less of a priority for Truro. So one of our big questions is, what does Truro need? And going forward, we want to do a lot of community engagement to look into that. As you can also see in our data visualization here, older adults are not very likely to use a resilience hub under normal conditions, but as a temporary evacuation center, they're very popular and as well as a place to gather information about disaster or critical resources. So these disaster instances are definitely a big point where we would want to be guiding older adults to using a resilience hub. So our future efforts, if we were able to get more time to research this, we definitely want to look into what exactly older adults would need by reaching out to residents of Truro.
So, through our literature review, we also found how important it is to utilize already existing municipality resources to create a resilience hub and sort of build these partnerships. So, some committees and boards that already exist within Truro that would be very helpful for this include the Emergency Management and Preparedness Committee, which already has a public notification system called Alert Truro and an Emergency Truro checklist you can see here that lists resources people should have prepared in case of a climate emergency. The Energy and Recycling Committee, which already hosts community workshops and educational sessions and public presentations about current climate issues and sort of how to go about these issues within Truro. And then also the Council of Aging, which provides support for the aging residents using their FAQs to look for fuel assistance, food pantries, wheelchair access, Medicare assistance, and home assistance, as well as van services. So, sort of the ideal resilience hub in Truro would tap into these resources and build these connections. Um, so yeah. So then moving into just our overall findings through this research. Here we came up with sort of the ideal Truro Resilience Hub framework, which includes three different pillars. The first being engagement, which is connecting with these older residents. What do they need specifically? So this would prioritize community engagement, which obviously we can't do in this specific project. But this could look like hosting coffee hours, game nights, things that senior residents would enjoy, visiting them where they're at, which could include local senior centers or going door to door, really just hearing from the source of the residents themselves of what they would want in this resilience hub to meet those needs. And then the second pillar we have is sustainable response system. So how do you plan for the worst? How do we plan for these climate emergencies effectively? So this could include mentorship programs between younger residents and older residents to build these connections so that they have someone to be accountable and responsible for during emergencies, providing training intensives or preparedness kits so that people have the resources and the knowledge they need of how to approach these emergencies, as well as utilize trusted community spaces for emergency shelters or to host the Resilience Hub itself. So that could be things like libraries, schools, etc., the senior living center, even, as well as having mobile resources. So being able to sort of get these emergency resources to the people where they're at, which is especially important for older people, which moves us into our third pillar of accessibility. How do we encourage using the Resilience Hub for older residents and meet them where they're at? So this includes accountability partners, which sort of is similar to the mentorship programs, like having these social connections, building that social trust within the residents who are older and younger. Having ADA compliant physical infrastructure within the Resilience Hub, so having things like ramps, anti-slip mats, things that would be welcoming for all abilities. Having virtual and in-person options to sort of receive this knowledge and these resources. So not only would there be sort of a spot for where you can go to receive these Resilience Hub resources in person, but if you're someone who prefers to stay at home or can't sort of make that move, which may be true for several older residents, you can have virtual options as well. And then finally, sort of tailoring information to individual levels of knowledge. So, sort of coming at this from beginner level knowledge, meeting people where they're at, and sort of getting them involved in understanding climate change and then understanding how to prepare for it.
Next up, we looked at how we can fill the gaps. So, what are we missing currently, and what would we want to look into if we were given more time, more resources? So, of course, one of the biggest things that we're not able to do with this particular project is community outreach, just given the scope of the project. That's not something that was part of it. And that's really important for our project. So, we really would want to talk to Truro residents, ask them what they're looking for in a community resilience hub, what issues they've experienced, and truly understand what's necessary for the unique demographics present there. We also would love to learn more about how the Resilience Hub will fluctuate within its functions depending on the seasons because of the big influence of tourism on the town and also seasonal weather changes that can be more extreme on the coast because we're going to see more extreme weather events. Um, Research on older demographics or resilience hubs in wealthier towns is also a big question. So, why do these things matter in these wealthier towns, and what are wealthier residents looking for? And we're also wondering about what does Truro currently have in place for their emergencies. We have some ideas of their emergency alert systems and some small bits of preparedness they're encouraging residents to do. But being able to reach out to the town and really look into their existing plans and if they have any evacuation plans, what that looks like and what resources they have available for that would really help build out this whole process.
Um, we have like 5 elements that we would make up as a resilience hub in Truro, and we think these are like core pillars for it. And those are engaging with the residents so we know the community well, the demographics of these residents so we know what their specific needs are so we can bring everything that they need to make them succeed. Being accessible as a resilience hub is also incredibly important, especially to an aging community like Truro, as well as one that's on the coast and at risk for climate disasters. Another pillar is community events to create a strong bond and sense of trust within the community and response systems so that our plans and procedures during emergencies so that every scenario is well thought out and planned for. These are all foundational to a successful resilience hub and are critical for Truro's new hubs so that they can succeed and be the best that they can be. And the next steps on December 16th, there are Resilience Hub community engagement events in Truro, MA.
And then just an overview of our sources if you want to fact check everything. And continued and continued. And that's all.